Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual fucking insight into what all of this stuff means. Freight Coach is on the road this week. As you guys can see, this isn't the studio. I'm joined by my friend Kyle Lintner today, live from Chicago. Some call it Freight Alley. I argue that Phoenix, Arizona is the freight market hot place of the world right now, but that's just my opinion. Yeah, awesome backdrop. Obviously, he's dapper as fuck, as always. So what's going on, man? How are you?
Not much. I'm doing well. How about you? Good to see you in Chicago.
I know. It's been a while since I've been down here. And, dude, there is just a vibe in big cities, you know? And, like, that's what I love the most about traveling is when you get out of your element, there's just a different environment down here, man. It's very evident just wherever you go in this city.
Yeah. Big cities definitely have a different feel than other freight alleys.
Yeah, dude. And I will say this, though. Kyle suggested Pequod's Pizza. You got to go. Hands down the best Chicago-style pizza I've ever had. It was insane. And I was with Tim Breckenridge and then one of his coworkers. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. I'm sorry. But we were out there last night. And, man, dude, it was wild.
I completely agree. I will say, as someone who's from Chicago, we don't really eat deep dish that much. But if you're going to have it, you got to have Pequod's. Yeah. By far the best.
1,000%. Brian Hagan, good morning. Sonny Sharma, Orange Shirt Gang. Let's have a great fucking week. You are right, sir. Anthony Rhodes, let's go. Good to see you out here in the audience. And, hey, as always, you guys, before we get into the show, got to give a shout out to my friends over at VHub. You guys hit them up, vhubapp.com. Doesn't matter if you're a carrier, broker, or shipper alike. We all need access to trailers at some point, especially right now, you guys, when freight markets change, things happen, you need to have solutions for your customers no matter what, especially if you're a small carrier or a small fleet. You should never have to shut your operation down if your trailer's in the shop. And the best part about it, you guys, is you guys get paid to move these trailers around for them right now. And I don't have the pictures like I normally do today, you guys, but they have the repositions available in Paragould, Arkansas, and Glade Spring, Virginia, going over to Orting, Washington. You get paid $15.50 to do that, you guys. And that's on top of the freight that you can put in the back of that trailer. They also have just outside, they have Clearfield, Utah, going into Henderson, Colorado. They have a reefer trailer for $700 on that one. They also have West Palm Beach going up to Northern New York. I can never pronounce this city's name up there, but it is pretty much just on the border. And Aquawasin, New York, we can call it. Sure. $1,500 to do that. And then they also have, you got to go on their vhubapp.com to bid on this. It's open bid. It's going from Coteau du Lac, which is just outside of Montreal in Quebec, going over to Calgary, Alberta. You can get paid $1,000 on those ones as well. And then they also have some ones out there for bid. So hit them up, you guys, vhubapp.com. My man Xavier Campos and my friend Stacy Steen, they'll be in the audience, you guys. Hit them up. Just do me a favor. Let them know the Freight Coach sent you. They're the ones who make this show possible every single day for you. Tammy R., good morning to you as well. Before we jump in, obviously, well, I was going to have Kyle on the show anyways because he's a friend of mine. And when I come into Chicago, I got to make sure I see Kyle. You know, Kyle posted up a screenshot of a post from a gentleman last week, and you know, obviously it gained a lot of steam out there in regards to what it had said. And you know, from a standpoint of, I'm never going to put myself on a pedestal and say that I haven't acted in that manner before. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people watch me is because I am fucking honest about my shortcomings in my career and everything else. But to me, it's the fact that that's the perception that carriers have with brokers out there, you guys. And that was the biggest thing, the amount of carriers that reached out to me that had said, this is why we hate brokers.
Yeah.
Is that style of behavior. And again, it's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's not the individual. I'm not immune from making mistakes. Everybody who watches this show or listens to this replay is not immune from making mistakes or anything like that. But it's not a best practice, you guys. And again, like that's what all of my content is dedicated towards, is to fucking change the trajectory of this industry. That the individual who made that post, you know, at the end of the day, he's a human being. We all fuck up. We all make mistakes and everything else. But like, that's the perception that we need to break that's out there, you know? And then like from your perspective though, man, like what you talk to just as many people as I talk to out there and everything. And it's like that's the negative rap that most brokers get.
Yes. And I will say that I didn't know to that extent or to that depth. My experience in freight's only been 4 years, and it hasn't been in the nuts and bolts or how the soup is made. So I don't always know what goes on to covering the booking or even posting. So when I ask questions like that on LinkedIn to people, which I often do, I genuinely do it for my own personal edification to better understand some of that stuff. So when I came across that post, it looks like what we all came to understand it was, but I wanted to hear like, hey, maybe I'm not seeing this right. And I've done that before where I've thought the worst, you know, somebody I saw one recently, I think you were on it too. They posted, there were potholes in a yard, and the comment was, oh, I bet, you know, whoever directed these didn't know what the hell he was doing. And I was like, well, in my mind, I'm thinking, was that some dig at the office guy that doesn't know the real world? And I just said, could you please explain? I don't understand. And then the driver let me know, like, oh, no, when you're driving it, it's for the driver, and he's not going to know with whatever his load is that it's going to bounce over those. But it was a total normal explanation. And I thought, you know, shame on me for thinking the worst in this person for posting. So let's just see what the real answer is on this. And I, you know, put it up, but then it comes to be that maybe it wasn't the best approach, and it was what it appeared to be at face value. And it is what my inbox and phone lit up to hear was, that is the perception, right? Every carrier thinks that. This is what every carrier thought. That's how they're treated at all times because the broker's always trying to screw them. And then at that point, like, that's the stuff that I just don't want to see. There's so many good people in this industry. It doesn't have to be this way. Every other industry operates with total transparency and everything so that we root out all of the bad actors.
Yeah.
Why can't we have that in freight?
Yeah. And it can happen, you know, but again, you guys, like, at the end of the day, this is what we're dedicated towards doing, is shattering the traditional silos and perceptions that are out there in this industry. And, you know, again, we all fuck up. We all make mistakes. This kid doesn't need to, you know, have their life ruined or never be able to find, you know, or whatever the fuck happens. I don't know. I personally, at the end of the day, I don't know what's going to happen of it. But again, let this be an example, though, you guys, of be the change that you actually want. Like, nobody else is going to come in here and do it. If you don't like the way certain things are being done in your life or your organization, be that change. You know, it is as simple as you changing that perception yourself and moving forward with it. Because again, I just feel like this is the shit that we need to do to really move this industry forward. And again, kumbaya doesn't exist. I'm never going to sit here and say like, oh, we're all going to fucking jump through and hold hands and everything else. It doesn't exist. But that's what drivers are looking for, is they're just looking for actual transparency in what the fuck's going on. Because it's not just that. It's the fact that there are people out there who are tendering over loads to carriers where the broker failed on it the day before. The drivers are working. We know it's a work-in, but we update the rate confirmation to show first come, first serve. So the driver thinks that they're going to go in and they can get loaded whenever, and then they sit for 7 or 8 hours. Yep. And again, another behavior that I'm not fucking immune from. I did that in my past. And again, you guys, I made this shit so much fucking harder on myself than it needs to be. And that's the big point of all of this, you guys. This job, yes, it is challenging. It is stressful. There's a lot of shit that can go wrong. Why are we fucking making it harder on ourselves, though? Like, it's why are we doing that?
Because no one realizes that that's the long game in it. So we talk about this every time. And that's the real way to move forward in this industry, even in your own individual book. Build those relationships, run the freight dedicated, right? Don't do transactional. You're not going to cover every single load with a new guy every time. It takes too much time. If you really want to make money, it's set up the carrier to run the freight automatically. You can't get to that part of the conversation if you're going to be dishonest.
Yeah.
Then you're always going to be transactional. And then you're going to spend all of your time trying to source a truck. But if you do take the time to be honest and build the relationship, you can have your freight then run automatically with those carriers. Now you have all this time back in your day to go out and acquire new business. But step one is just being honest and building the relationship. And that's never going to happen if you're trying to take the easy way out.
Yeah.
Everything in life, it's always take the hard way. And the hard way is taking the time to build the relationships.
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. And, you know, I will say this, and we'll get into the articles that we're going to break down here. At least the guy came out and owned up and said he fucked up. So many, like I will always give credit where credit's due. At least he came out 100%. And said, I fucked up. This is my fault. Everything else, more power to him. Because again, like, there's no harm, no foul in my book at that point, as long as they own it up and they, again, actions will always speak louder than words. Right. And as long as they truly change their ways and go better about it, more power to them. Again, I'm not immune to fucking up in my life. I'm never going to hold put myself on a pedestal and, I've never done. Oh, fuck that, man. Like
Right.
I've done a lot of stupid shit in my life.
Well, along those lines too, a lot of people reached out and said, this person should be banned from the industry. And I said, well, wait a second. Nobody succeeds by screwing somebody every single time, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that guy did well to get where he's at in this
Correct.
industry or to be around that long. But let's just focus on those and eliminate some of the less than savory things that you're doing. It's not like anyone got to that position by screwing every single guy on every single day. Oh, he does a ton of stuff great. Let's just work on those.
No, that's exactly it, man. It's just fucking today's society of cancel culture at its finest. Oh, cancel this fucking this person, that person. And generally the people who, like, at least, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but the ones who are the loudest critics are probably who are deflecting the most to hope that their shit doesn't come to light.
Yeah.
So it's easier to fucking fan the flame in another direction in the hope that it doesn't fall back and blow back on them.
Look at him. Don't look at me.
Yeah, exactly, dude. That's exactly it. Robert Bain, the strongest man in freight. I had the pleasure of fucking watching. We had lunch yesterday together. I met up with him. He picked me up from the airport, and man, can that guy fucking eat. We put down some fucking food yesterday together, and dude, it was awesome. I got to meet his amazing family over at their house as well. And yeah, man, I can definitely see he married up. He definitely outkicked his coverage. That's for sure.
For you, Rob.
Brian Hagan. Yeah, man, you are right. You got to build trust with carriers and customers from every load. Drew Driscoll. What's up, brother? Let's go. Let's break down some articles, man. Let's
do it.
So the first one we're going to talk about, and there's not much to talk about in this one, so that's why we're going to get to it first. And thank God this is a thing now, but according to ttnews.com, Canada will drop its vaccine mandate at the border starting September 30th. Finally, that's about all I can say at this point when it comes down to this article. I'm not going to get into the substance of it because me even just bringing that up is going to get my fucking content flagged and devalued instantly for bringing it up. But I don't give a fuck. I'm here to talk about the realities of the world and not what an echo chamber sounds like. And, you know, that, like, again, it's an arbitrary date at this point, but I understand that you got to choose something in that regard. But it's good to see that that's gone and that freight is going to start more free flowing throughout the United States and Canada at that point.
Not going to say any more. You're getting deplatformed.
Yeah, exactly. You don't say anything else. I just got canceled. But
the only thing I will say is for everyone watching, this is ridiculous how much stuff you do. You're like Superman.
I know. Well, thank you.
It looks seamless from that end.
It looks a lot. Well, it's a lot easier in my studio too, because I got multiple screens. I got shit that I'm fucking doing behind the scenes and reading comments and everything else that go out there. But dude, this article though that we're going to Robert Bain, Kyrie can play. Yeah, exactly. We'll get into this other one. This is also from Transport Topics to go, you guys, ttnews.com. And then this is August trailer orders reflect a complicated market. Shameless plug for VHub, you guys, right there. But U.S. trailer orders in August jumped compared to a year earlier, but we're still, can't even pronounce that word. Tepid. There we go. Tepid at 17,700 in the third lowest of this year and barely up from July's total. A year earlier, it was at orders were at 12,366 in July. Orders reached 16,000, just about 17,000 at the year's second lowest at that point. And then, which reported fleets still wanted to make sure that their orders are in queue and everything else. And, again, it's like hearing that, and I've talked to some trailer manufacturers. I've talked to, the guest on my podcast who's going to be released tomorrow is a truck salesman from Minnesota. Okay. And we were talking about that. And then when I was at the Minnesota Trucking Association conference last month, I talked to multiple different dealers out there, and they were saying like, hey, when it comes to new equipment, we're sold out throughout 2023. So like people aren't backing away from the orders. And I think so. It's like you kind of need to take a lot of this information with a grain of salt right now, because the orders aren't rolling in because there aren't any orders to fulfill. The manufacturers have. So essentially what I learned, and, again, listen to the podcast tomorrow, shameless plug, but I didn't know that dealers are only allocated a certain amount of equipment from manufacturers. I kind of thought it was, I'm assuming in most normal markets, it's a free for all. You place orders as they come because they can get them out. But they've essentially been, I don't want to call it handcuffed, but they've only been allotted a certain amount of new equipment throughout the year, and that stuff gets snatched up right away.
It's like car dealers.
Yeah.
And the best car dealers get the nicest and the best selection and the widest selection, and those that don't get whatever. But what the manufacturer produces, it's allocated to each individual place based on how well you perform. So you don't have, it's not like you said, which would make sense. whoever does the most orders is going to get it, not here's what you did based off last year's numbers. And the other thing I'll say is everything is still such a mess with all of that. And it's so confusing. You read that and it's higher year over year, but sequentially down. It's the weakest of the year. Oh, but for August, it's higher than any other August. So what do you make of any of that stuff? And no one knows. What really messes it up is the continuous ordering of more trailers because they can't fix the problems of what they already have. So the solution in their mind is, I'll just order more. I'll just order more. I'll just order more. And that's where, not to put another shameless plug in there, but something like VHub, where there's all of these trailers that just aren't in the right places, instead of ordering more and continuing that line from the beginning of the chain, like, let's just take it from where it is at any point in the chain and redistribute it.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of people, in talking to my guests on tomorrow's show about the whole financing thing and like how purchasing, like we broke down why purchasing a semi truck is different than purchasing a vehicle, like on a personal level and everything else. And I think that's why a lot of guys, when they come into it, they find out that like, holy shit, I can't get, it's not that they can't afford a trailer. They don't have the business credit. They don't have everything built up. So that's why they go into leasing and renting a trailer and everything else. And, and especially now, like you can't find that equipment that's out there too. So it's like when you do, and I think a lot of people are seeing the after effects of when the market is so tight when it comes to purchasing power, that they're like, shit, I have to buy this truck because there's nothing else that's out there. And then they get into a shitty financing deal and everything else. And now they're fucked essentially in the long term. But again, like these are those situations that you need to look at from a whole viewpoint before you go out there and start a business at all.
Yeah. Understand what your expenses are going to be before you begin any business. And then even with those trailers, yes, the biggest problem for everybody as it pertains to that is you might order it now, but it's not coming for 18 months.
Yeah.
So messing around with the build slots as far as pushing them forward or pulling them back, trying to time all that stuff up, it's very, very difficult, as well as the large fleets. They tend to have a schedule that they want to stick with as far as life cycle of it. So they order the trailer. It's only going to be there for 3 to 5 years before they have a new one to replace it. And that goes on to the secondary market. So there's just one big mess, go figure, it's freight. Everything's one big mess. But trailers are even worse because it's a physical equipment and it needs to be pulled. It's not even like a tractor. So somebody has to route it. Just getting them produced is one thing. It still has to get to where it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole other problem. Trailers sitting at the OEMs to be delivered. Also VHub service offering.
App.com.
Trailers are like the redheaded stepchild with that. If there were loads sitting around, they would get moved. But when they're trailers, somehow people sit on them.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. There's another good article. As always, you guys, I put the links to all of the articles that we break down in the Coffee with the Freight Coach podcast replay, which the audio version will be available on later today, as well as the Freight Coach YouTube channel. Jump over there and subscribe and share it out. Another shameless plug for myself. Cody Miller, good fucking morning to you as well, sir. And then also my business partner and broker carrier, you guys, he was interviewed on the Trucking for Millennials podcast by my friends Michael Clements Jr. and Aaron Dunn. Hit that up, you guys, and listen to what Kyle had to say. It's Kyle Provost's release into the wild of the social media world and everything else. And I'm his booking agent as well. So if you guys want him on his podcast, hit me up. No, I'm just kidding. Last article that we're going to talk about here today is from our friends over at Freight Waves. And that is trucking caught. Oh, hold on. Let me scroll up here. Trucking caught in crossfire of Fed's war on inflation. Rate hikes may double down on truckload demand rate hikes may double down on truckload demand declines in 2023. Feds raised the interest rates as we saw on Wednesday, and it's going to more than likely support a continuing decline in trucking demand that started in early March. And the national outbound tender volume, which measures, which measures requests from shippers on truckload capacity, has an inverse correlation with the Fed's funds rate. As one goes up, the other one comes down. Truckload demand has been at its highest levels, which interest rates have been down close to zero. This correlation is somewhat coincidentally, but not definitively disconnected from what predicts a sharper decline in volumes is yet to come. The primary purpose of the Fed's reserves is to ensure economic stability, by keeping prices stable and maximizing employment. Inflation has been above what Feds view as acceptable, 3% since the start of the year, and that causes a rise in interest rates as a historic pace starting back in March. While stabilizing prices and maintaining full employment may be mutually exclusive endeavor at the moment, the Feds view inflation as the priority. I mean, do you see this as a direct correlation into the market as a whole, or
a lot of stuff? So first of all, correlation is never causation. Just because two things move in tandem doesn't mean one's related to the other.
Yeah.
You can pull up a chart of anything and find something that matches to it. And obviously the birth rate of tadpoles in North America has nothing to do with the price of an equity, but you can find the two and they'll match together and move in synchronicity. So we'll all think so. As far as interest rates, this gets really interesting because I put a post out last week to try and reiterate this to people, especially with freight. The price of crude oil means more than actual interest rates. So crude oil obviously is going to be what we get diesel fuel from. So the cost to run the truck is one thing. The cost to produce the goods also goes higher because, not to turn this into chemistry, but plastics, synthetics, resins, almost anything that you can think of that is not made of metal or wood has something in it that is produced as a byproduct from petroleum. Lastly, that goes to packaging as well. So you have the fuel required to run the truck, you have the good, and then that good placed into its packaging, all based off the price of a barrel of crude, not an interest rate. All interest rates do is increase or decrease the supply of physical money. And that's another weird thing that nobody realizes. The Federal Reserve doesn't come out and just say, we're going to make the interest rate here. They actually increase or decrease the supply of money. So they either print money or they pull money out of circulation. So very, very literally, we have X amount of money out in the system, or we have Y amount of money into the system.
Okay.
So the goal with interest rates in raising them right now is to take some money out of the system because in their eyes, there is just too much of it flying around. This is obviously the after effects of pumping the system with money.
Was $6 trillion? Yeah,
right.
Weird.
But then what they didn't foresee coming, and nobody did, was the sharp rise in crude oil. So now we have this weird spot where there is too much money in the system, most likely, and we also have the price for goods going up because of that increase in crude oil. So as it pertains to freight, I would say the number one thing for people to pay attention to is the price for a barrel of oil, which thankfully has come down 30 to 40% from its peak. It's still relatively high, but it's obviously much less. Anyone who's filled up, it's not as bad as it used to be. The interest rates, it's still too high.
Yeah, it's still terrible. But
the interest rates are not the biggest problem. You know, there should be less money flying around right now. But to match tenders and freight with what interest rates are doing, that's not necessarily how it goes. Even so, the economy and the stock market are two different things. That's another thing they try and control our asset prices. Too much money flying around, people will buy too many equities, they'll buy too many houses, they'll buy too many whatever, because you can easily get a loan because a bank is sitting on a pile of money. That doesn't necessarily mean less freight. Freight is about consumer demand, right? What do I need? What am I buying?
Yeah.
You know, you don't buy money. Yes, you buy a house whose price will be influenced by the interest rates, but that's flatbed crap. I mean, how much of that housing demand ends up on dry vans, which is 70+% of the freight industry?
I think, but you'd be surprised though, the amount that they can shift on. So like, honestly, like a lot of building materials from that perspective, like it's easier to load it onto a flatbed from that perspective. But I've seen that shift depending on the size of the manufacturer that's out there.
Swing
they
doors,
will, all of a sudden they have a loading dock that they'll use and pump out because if they play the markets more than people think. But you know, you're very right though. And like I think that the flatbed market, the most is overlooked, but it's the leading indicator on how the freight market will perform over the next 6 to 12 months. And because again, everybody looks at the bright shining object, which is dry van, which consumes, like you said, 70% of the market. But I think the leading indicator is the open deck market. And if that volume is still moving high, that means people are still building, which will in turn, long-term, have a greater effect on the freight market than most people give it credit to, in my opinion.
You're right. The first thing that's done, the house gets built, then everything goes inside the house. What goes inside is what's in a dry van.
Yes.
And you know, you're right on that flatbed, because one of the best indicators of the actual health of the economy are things like rail volume, which is industrial again, or industrial production, obviously industrial manufacturing, same goes there. Those things are flatbed, not dry. One comes first.
Yeah.
Look at this. We're learning things.
I know. Here we are. We
got through 3 articles. It took getting to be in person.
I know. Well,
and a throwaway article.
Yeah, I was going to say the first one was kind of a blip on the radar because I'm already getting deplatformed, and that might have just been the nail in the coffin. But you know, it does talk about in this article though about a 19% drop in truckload demand over the course of 5 weeks. You know, and then the interest rates started coming up, and you know, obviously the pandemic levels and everything else. And then that truckload contract rates take longer to move and just have started to drop over the past few months. The historic relationship between spot and contracts said that they will fall at least 14% if demand remains stable. And again, that's a very bold claim with that volume, because again, I was talking about this last night with dinner, and I talk about this frequently, you guys. Contracted rates are based off of a percentage of what they were booking for on the spot market the year prior.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you take in and bid on it. So that's why naturally contracted tenders will not be rejected, because obviously they're going to make more money on contracts. I don't know why you would fucking reject a higher paying load to take it for cheaper. But at the end of the day, you guys, yes, there's a natural rebalancing act that's out there. That's what you're going to start see. And the bid cycle for 2023 will obviously that's where the correction will happen. And then my guess, again, this is solely based off of the 3 truckloads that I've moved in my career. What you will see is a rebalance of the spot market in early 2023, because the bid cycle after the awards come out, they will start to creep up, because that tender rejection will start to come in, because they're going to be like, well, fuck it, let's roll the dice on the spot market and see what we can get out there. That risk to reward factor will start playing in. That's my prediction on when you will start to see more of an evening of the market as a whole. I think that's where the correction will start to
it'll be like the opposite of what we saw for this year, right?
Yes.
Because of the amount of opportunities that come from the annual cycle turning over. And if we just think about this practically, brokerage margins historically are between 12 to 16%. So spot versus contract should be somewhere between 12 to 16%. Otherwise, no. Why would you accept a load if it was in excess of the contract, and then vice versa? Why would you put it out there? So that can happen more than one way. Contract rates can come down, spot rates can come up, or a mixture of both. It doesn't need to be one or the other.
It can happen tomorrow too.
Yeah.
As fucking unpredictable as this market's been.
Right.
But again, like a lot of the people that I talk to in the industry, like the rebid cycle has already happened. Like there's a peak season. Yeah. And that's the thing is it's like, yes, data is key, you guys, but go out there and look at multiple data sets. There are a lot of great companies who put a lot of information out there. And again, every company that's putting out information, in my opinion, is worth a view.
Yep.
You have to look at it subjectively though, and see what is going to be best. Because again, predicting rates, like fuck, man, ever since I got into this industry, has been the biggest thing. And no matter what algorithms out there, and again, there's a lot of great companies who have rating tools and everything, but no algorithm will beat fucking Tim and Jan's flatbed company out of Phoenix, Arizona, that only runs to El Paso, Texas and back. Like that'll never beat it. But again, that's only one market, one lane, one trucking company. But again, like you got to attack it like this. And I get all the time, I need to find shippers. How do I price lanes? How do I do this? Fucking one at a time. Right now, this is a real freight market, you guys. This is the fucking show. The last 2 years have kind of been name your price tool. Yeah. This is how a fucking normal freight market will operate. And my guess, back just based off of my career,
the 3 loads.
Yeah, the 3 loads only. 10 to 12% is going to be the margin on a commodity like a dry van or a reefer load. 10 to 12%. Yep. You got to fucking sharpen the pencil, you guys.
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of brokers out there who are more than happy to wait it out, play the long game.
Yeah. The average is 12 to 16, but it's not like every load comes in there. I think the bulk of them do come in between 10 to 12, and the outliers that are 20 to 30% are what pull that number up.
Yeah.
It isn't like every load goes in that 12 to 15 window. It's maybe even now it's more like 8 to 10.
It could be. And again, like if I was in charge of a large scale brokerage, if I was moving volume, I would tell everybody, sharpen your fucking pencils. We're going to run at 8%. I don't care if it's $100 or $125. I'm going to squeeze out our competition. Yep. I'm going to chip them away one load at a fucking time. And then it's only a matter of time before we have all the capacity built up, because we are actually paying carriers what they need. And then eventually we have all the trucks coming to us, and our competition are going to get so fucking frustrated they're going to quit.
CH?
No, man. Well, I was trained by some fucking savage motherfuckers on how to do this job. And it's no mistake why they got as big as they did, because they know how to play.
That's a really good point. So there's a billion ways to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pick which one works for you.
Correct.
There's no right way, one way to do this.
Yeah. Don't listen to everything I'm saying and think that it's going to work out, because again, I'm just one person. I want you guys to look at things differently and think of a different way. of how to operate and see what is going to work and what's not going to work for you. Because there is no one set way of doing things. There is no one data company out there or, software company out there that's got it all figured out over everybody else. Except Google. Yeah, exactly. Because they're spying on us right now. But, well, shit, you guys, that's it for today. That's it for Monday, the Freight Coach Morning Show. We're going to be live tomorrow and Wednesday from the JOC Inland Conference out there. I'm going to be having different guests kind of filtering in throughout those shows and everything else. But that's it for today. You guys know how to find Kyle. His DMs have been very active. But yeah, that's it. Again, you guys, if you guys saw value in it, share the show. Because at the end of the day, if you see value in it, your network's going to see value in it as well. I appreciate you guys all so much, and we'll be talking.